Hello everyone, today we're learning how to beat the harder protocols using the destruction path, which in my opinion is one of the strongest paths in the mode. Now, if you think going all destruction blessings or equation means free win, you're gonna get your butt kicked. Unless your name is Castorice, you cannot get away with doing that. However, adding elation there makes the run much more feasible, or an absolute cakewalk for some. I want to mention, if you do not have HP scalers, you can just use what I say about the elation part because it's actually so strong in this game mode. Now, I'll put the strategy code in a pinned comment, but I recommend watching the video so you know what you're doing. Now, with destruction, there is one issue, and it's that it revolves around consuming your HP. Currently, there's only two characters that can abuse Blazar, that being My Day and especially Castorice, who makes this mode an absolute joke. On the other hand, we have HP scalers such as Jingliu and Blade, who instead will be mostly relying on the buffs provided by the game mode and elation to beat it. In regards to destruction, it's nearly impossible to die due to the sheer amount of HP you have with the strategy. Your units will have around 10 to 20k HP, so enemies will literally tickle you until they're enraged. Moving on, let me first explain what the Blazar trait is. I will skip some details to save time. Now, after you get a destruction blessing with Blazar in its description, you will now begin charging Blazar. 30% of the HP changes and shields will be converted into it. So what exactly does Blazar do? Well, normally, the only thing that Blazar does is deal reactive damage every time an enemy hits you. However, what we want is to use that Blazar damage proactively and attack enemies with it. In this example, Pollux loses a lot of HP. Then she deals a strike which uses all the Blazar accumulated and dishes it out. By the way, normally the damage won't be this high as this footage is just from a very stacked run. This part of the strategy works decently with My Day due to him consuming a lot of his own HP. But it's disgustingly strong with Castorice because she easily drains tens of thousands of HP from your allies, but Pollux can also lose 50 to 60,000 HP every time they charge Blazar. Blade and Jingliu, on the other hand, are not consuming that much HP to make something like this happen, so we'll have to look at the alternative. This second way involves aftertaste from the elation path. As you can see, after we lost a lot of HP, this effect kicks in and starts to rain meatballs down from the sky, which can deal a buttload of damage. This damage scales off the ally's max HP, which is why we're looking at destruction. Now, because this damage is aftertaste, Elation Blessings and equations make this deal an insane amount of damage. So how do we replicate this in the first place? Well, it all starts with the blessings. We'll first look at the destruction and Blazar ones, which someone like Castorice and Mighty abuses. The most important one will be the 3-star blessing, Random Free Path Shockwave. This is what allows our attacks to deal out Blazar damage. While there are equations which of course allow this too, this is the lowest barrier of entry and is a must for the run. We of course have the other 3-star blessings which help the run. Next are the 3 2-star Blazar enhancement blessings, which are very important in terms of damage. This will be Cataclysmic Variable, which now allows Blazar to crit, Concealed Shadow Bands, and Compact Blades, which further enhances its multiplier. And the last 2-star blessing of note is Force Jump, which is one of the strongest blessings in this mode. For everyone else, this blessing essentially acts as an emergency heal once you get below 35% HP. For Castorice, however, this will let Pollux deal 5 more breath attacks, and because Pollux has 34,000 HP, that's essentially losing 42,000 more HP to charge up Blazar, which, as you can see, deals a metric frick load of damage. So that's the foundation of this strategy. However, as mentioned prior, other HP scalers who do not drain as much cannot abuse this aspect. So that's where the next part comes in, with Elation. Elation by itself deals an insane amount of damage, but our characters don't really have follow-up attacks. That's where our Ocean Kernel comes in, which is the other must of a run. Now, after we use an ultimate, our next 2 attacks will deal aftertaste damage. While yes, the baseline aftertaste scales on our attack, not HP, we really don't care because it just deals so much damage. Cry of the Cosmic Cat, your cabinet, and Simon in the Sea are very important in regards to amping aftertaste damage. With all that said, on the screen now is an infographic if you want to screenshot it to remind yourself what to get. The first row shows the Blazar stuff that we want for the run. By the way, these 2 blessings right here are very good for building Blazar and helps when enemy cannot attack. The second row are other useful stuff which can help your run, especially the action advance stuff, which is very broken of course. Lastly, we have the Elation stuff, which is vital for our run. Keep in mind, Ocean Kernel and then these 3 blue ones. Now just a reminder though, while we are trying to abuse Blazar and Aftertaste, we still need the blessings that amp our personal damage to get through the early game. So crit stuff or damage bonus is still really useful. So now that we know how Blazar works and how to let ourselves do aftertaste damage without follow-up attacks, it's now time to go over the equations. Starting with Elegy Priest and Sky Priest, these are genuinely ass. Both take way too long to deal any meaningful damage and just suck. Please never go these, they are an absolute waste of space. Conflict Author, on the other hand, is strong as hell and the only viable one of the bunch. When you lose enough HP, you'll deal 350% of your max HP as aftertaste damage to all enemies. This right here also becomes absolutely insane once you pair it with the other 2-star Elation Blessings and also equations. What's great is that once your turn starts, you will drain an increasing amount of HP every time this drain occurs, which helps out teams which don't drain that much HP. This of course is a must for the run, but even more so for people like Blade or Jing Liu. Berserker is more so a secondary option if you happen to get multiple 3-star equations, but it's usable when it comes to amping your Blazar generation. Moving on, we'll actually look at our 1-star equations, which are actually really freaking strong. War Scribes is OP as hell, increasing our HP, charging Blazar, and making Blazar not lose charge for 1 turn after a summon or entering battle. This right here is meant for casters, but of course the 40% HP is still great even if you don't have her. Red Moons and Fangs of the Dying Sun increases our Blazar damage, with Foolish Child increasing our charge efficiency. The next strong 1-star blessings are Water Lyrist and Sophist, which lets our units deal another instance of Aftertaste and Blazar. The final 1-star blessings of note are Golden Mysteries and Radiant Jelly for that early damage amp. Going over the 2-star equations, the strongest one is Smiling Executioner, which lets us deal aftertaste damage scaling on our HP every attack as long as we're healthy enough. Yeah, it's as strong as it sounds. With Coronal Phoenix, we're here for the Blazar charge efficiency, but if you are in the butterfly state, your attacks will now deal Blazar damage. Ominous Flame Spirit can be strong if you have applied the dot, which I do believe Murmur should count towards this. Kremno's Vanguards can help maintain charge, which can be useful, but it's not always the most practical. Brewer of Bitter Memories is good for Hyacinth and Cass unless their Memo Sprites count as follow-up attacks, and seeing how we're stacking on Aftertaste, yeah, it's very strong. To finish off this section, we have Wolfmother and Roaming Troop for early and mid-game scaling. Overall, I think the strategy is very nice in the sense that we only need to focus on 1 3-star equation, and that there's also so many options for us to buff our damage, unlike Break, which is pretty limited in that regard. To finish off this section, I've put all the noteworthy equations on the screen, which you can take a screenshot if you like. Before we talk about the golden boons, I want to cover the Titan nodes as it had some really important buffs. On the first page, we have one which increases your golden boon selection by 1, and another which increases our HP by 30% in the night. On the second page, under the Eye of Twilight, we again increase our golden boon selection so we can now choose between 3. Now, with us increasing our selection by 2, we now have a high chance of getting the boons we want. Firstly, never go day because it sucks with this strategy, and especially do not try to swap between day and night because that sucks a lot too. Next, avoid Cypher because she sucks, and avoid Savridra because she only really works if you swap between day and night. As such, we have only 4 viable options. Castorice and Mighty are always the ones to look out for due to increasing our HP and final damage. Next is Terrorbox, who further helps your sustain by providing your shield and increasing your final damage. Lastly, Evernight just gives us more final damage increase. If you had to choose between Terrorbox and Evernight, go Terrorbox if you think you need more sustain, and go Evernight if you use Remembrance characters. Now on the screen, this will be our final infographic with the boons. Finally, I'll go over the gameplay. And to be honest, there's not really much to say about this strategy, because just by playing normally, you're either getting carried by Blazar or aftertaste damage. However, I do want to quickly go over how you can break this mode with Castorice though. As you know, we charge Blazar when allies lose HP. With Pollux, they can lose up to 34,000 HP when using all their breath attacks. However, this is calculated if the unit is still alive. This means we cannot use the final breath attacks and make them explode, as we 1. Won't keep our Blazar charge, and 2. Cannot proc Conflict Author. As such, we want to use as many breath attacks without having Pollux explode. That's where Force Jump comes in, as it will keep healing Pollux, which gives us extra breath attacks. And then there are also blessings which heal you when you kill or break an enemy, which does heal Pollux mid-breath. With that said, this lets Pollux have way too much Blazar and just has them nuke everything with their claw attack. But yeah, that's everything for this guide. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be sure to reply to them down below. I just want to say though, generally, the earliest part of this run will be the hardest because you don't have the right equations or blessings, so you'll be primarily relying on your character's builds. But once you get the right stuff near the middle of the run, it should be pretty free. I hope this guide helps you get your win streak, and besides that, peace.